Make that more tangible for me, because here's an interesting challenge. When we talk about cooperation in the physical sense, I know what that looks like. You need a hand with that, I come over, I give you a hand with it, we cooperate, we get the job done. I don't get the mental side of this. I don't get the cooperation of thought, for example. Mm-hmm. And if shared vision or some sense of a long-term benefit that comes from shared vision is the goal of that, how do I make more tangible the thought part of that? How am I cooperating with somebody by just thinking?
You know, I was recently reading about a new theory, and it's called biocentric theory, biocentrism it's called. And it's by this American scientist who's based this on quantum physics. But the whole biocentric theory talks about how that life itself decides the universe. Life creates universe. It's not the other way around. Not universe creates life, but life creates universe. And so it changes the whole perspective on things. And so not only about life creating universe, but also life and consciousness creating universe. And so it kind of, for the last 100 years, whatever we have been scientifically grappling with, this theory actually accounts for all of that, because life and consciousness are actually the basis of creating our universe. And so when you think about that, when you think about life and consciousness creating the basis of the universe, then you realize that actually consciousness is much more subtle. And consciousness, when I mean, is your thoughts, your feelings, your attitudes, all of those are a lot more subtle, and they actually create the world around which you live.
But what do you mean by that? I mean, if I concentrate hard enough, something will form around me?
No, but what happens is, for example, let's say you are working with someone in your workplace and you're really wanting that person to change. What I've noticed, and this is really my practical experience on the whole thing, is that when I change something within myself, when I change my attitude, when I change my thoughts towards that person, when I change my feelings towards that person, the person actually transformed. That the whole situation between us transformed. And so that's what I mean on a more practical level, is that I create the world around me through my perception, through my attitudes, through my feelings. Because thoughts, if you think about it, thoughts are actually the seed of everything, the seed of what's going on.
But in this case, and that, I think you may have told me that story of watching someone transform because you changed your attitude.
Right, right.
But let me follow the trail, that by changing your thoughts and changing your attitude, the person in your company feels differently around you because you are relating differently with them.
Right, right.
Which allows them to transform. So there's some action that comes out of this, out of the thought.
Yeah, the seed. Finally, yes, the action is a result, but the seed is the thought. And so, for example, how do I cooperate with my attitude? And so my attitude would be that of the highest benevolence, that I have this attitude of really that the other person should benefit. If, let's say, my thoughts, if I have this thought, this very, very pure thought that, that everything should go right with me, with everyone around me. Let's say if my perception is I have the vision that they have these many specialities, and I'm just looking at their specialities, because everyone has good things and bad things. And so I'm just looking at their good stuff and I'm not looking at their bad stuff. And so that's my vision for them. And so all of these things actually help me to the way I relate to the person, the way I talk to the person, and the way I act toward the person, which actually changes the whole situation. It changes the whole equation.
I mentioned to you once before this particular piece of communication theory called attribution theory, which I've spent some time, just a little bit of time, reading about. And one of the pieces of that theory says that if you attribute to someone good qualities when they have success, then they will come to see that the good qualities are inherent to them, and will gain the confidence to make this happen the next time. So if you say to me, well, you achieved that goal obviously because you're a good person, and you treat people well. Then the notion is that I will then think, well, it must be my goodness that causes that to happen, so I'm a good person, and I will then succeed the next time because I believe that. Some people see that in some ways as just positive reinforcement. That's one of those more popular theories. But it does suggest that the attribution is the important thing, that I say to you that you achieved it because of your goodness. Is that sort of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, and even before you actually say it, that your thought level, your attitude, your vision, and your perception, and all of those things have changed about the person.
So you got to believe it first.
Yes. So it's not just, I mean, of course, I mean, so once you're saying it, after you think it, then it comes across more authentic. You know, people really pick up on these things if it's not authentic, right?
But cooperation in this case, and the of cooperation, the notion that there are two things at least that are joining together, is actually an act performed by a single person. That your thoughts, your attitudes are not linked in this case with me. We are not having any kind of relationship yet. You're adjusting your attitude first, then we communicate.
But I'm adjusting my attitude first towards you. That's the difference.
That's the cooperation.
That's the cooperation, is that actually my whole thing is about helping someone else. That's the whole point of cooperation, is I use my resources to help someone else. And so the other thing is that when does the other person come into play? Is this aspect of when we really have a common task. Let's say I'm very passionate about something, then I am willing to really overlook a lot of things about people, that I'm willing to go beyond my own capacity. I'm willing to go beyond the weaknesses of myself and the weaknesses of other people to really achieve that. And so that is also about cooperation. And so I think the most important thing here is we have to agree on the task. We have to agree on what is it, where is it we as a community and as a society, as a world is going right now. And so that makes it easier to have that vision and that attitude and all of those things right, is if I completely agree with what's happening with the tasks that I'm cooperating with.
In many of the other powers, we will reach a point in which you might say, well, then you no longer use that power, you employ this one. Is there a time when you say, no cooperation today?
I guess it could be. It could be.